It's almost winter. Are you assuming it's too late to put plants in the garden? Today I'm going to talk about 3 secrets to successfully planting native plants in the fall.
I don't give a god how famous I am or whatever. It don't matter to me because I'm about dead anyway. So.
And what to do if it really is too late and you ran out of time. The growing season is over for us in the north and everyone is exhausted from the gardening season.
Are you okay? You look tired.
The holidays are coming and maybe you remember that you have some plants that you wanted to divide or transplant. Maybe you even have trees or shrubs that are dying in pots on the side of the garage.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
I feel personally attacked. At my house, I probably have 50 plants that need to get in the ground.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
But it's not too late to transplant them. I just have to remember a few things. One thing I learned is that people overestimate the way that the leaves look, and we underestimate the plant's root system. Of course, everyone's supposed to know this, but our minds automatically look at the plant, we see the greenery, but the root system is hidden from us. So we don't always appreciate how special our roots are. In the North American prairie, there used to be frequent natural fires. And over time, the indigenous people started controlling the fire themselves because they realized that the plants were able to survive just fine after being burned. That's because our plants store most of their mass and energy underground in these enormous root systems. Some of these roots even reach 12 feet underground.
Facts that sound fake but are true.
I know it sounds fake, but these roots are extensive. So if a herd of buffalo comes stomping through the grass, eating all the fresh leaves, the prairie would recover just fine because it had plenty of energy stored in its roots underground. I live in the suburbs, and if some kids run through the garden and stomp on my plants, this is why I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. It's really not a big deal.
Hey guys, I've just reseeded that.
So what does this have to do with planting in the fall? That's because it helps to remember that the foliage on top is only a small part of the plant right now. So if we plant something and then we have a frost the next day, it really doesn't hurt the plant. The frost kills the foliage back every single year no matter what. So we don't have to worry about the plant freezing the next day. It wouldn't make a difference. Our native plants are known for their roots. The roots are what matters. If you have a good root system on your plants, they should be fine to plant this fall. As you can see, these plants have seen better days, but I promise you their roots are strong. Ideally, I would have put these plants in the ground in October when it was still warm enough, but you can absolutely plant perennials in late fall here in Zone 5, and even in winter if the ground is soft enough to work with. So here I have a flat of spirobolus grass, some sedges.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I'm gonna get these in the ground after Thanksgiving weekend. Yup, the end of November, beginning of December. Is it cold? Yeah. Is it the ideal time to plant? Not exact. But is it okay to plant? Yes, it is. Absolutely. So how cold is too cold to plant? Well, let's find out for ourselves. See, the ground is actually much warmer than the air above it. Freezing cold Arctic air kicks down the door, punches through Ontario, Minnesota, and then visits us in the Midwest. But the ground has so much mass that only the top part freezes over. A ½ inch into the ground reveals that the soil temperature is a balmy 45 degrees. That's a 25-degree difference in the air temperature. The ground is really holding on to a lot of heat. That may seem too cold, but it really isn't, not for our native plants. Now, if I leave these plants in containers, they will be above ground, and these pots will end up being the same temperature as the air temperature. That makes a huge difference between life or death for a plant over winter. So that's why my second tip for planting in fall, don't let them get too cold. We do this by getting them in the ground where the soil temperature will keep them warmer than the air temperature throughout the winter. But just making sure they don't get too cold is only one part of the process. A lot of plants in pots die over the winter, not just from freezing, but from drying out. Without the moisture that plants get from being surrounded by literally tons of soil, the soil in the pot will dry out fast and the roots of the plant will desiccate or dry out. So being surrounded by earth and mulching the ground is the best way to deal with these problems of freezing too cold and drying out. My favorite way to protect existing plants from drying out in the winter is to do nothing. Yes, do nothing. Let the plant's own leaves cover the ground, protect them from getting too cold, protect them from drying out. Basically, I'm saying to leave the leaves as your own free mulch. Just like the spirobolus keeps its leaves and covers its roots over the winter, if our plant is too small and doesn't have a lot of leaves, we can cover it with tree leaves or wood mulch to prevent the ground from drying out over the winter. Your neighbor's leaves are perfect for this job. If you don't have a lot of trees, you can get leaves from your neighbors. They got a ton. Now, you don't want to overdo it and smother them with a giant pile, but 3 to 6 inches of leaves is a perfect amount. You got to realize that half of these leaves are going to blow away anyway, so be generous. So make sure you have a good root system, get your plants in the ground, and cover them with mulch, and you're going to see them get a nice head start in spring. But you also might say, Lisa, this is great. Thank you for your amazing wisdom. But respectfully, I'm not digging around in the garden when it's 30 degrees out.
Exactly, thank you.
Okay, I'm a very realistic gardener, and I know that some of you are like, Lisa, it's just not gonna happen. I got family coming in for the holidays. Totally understand. I was actually waiting to plant until after I had my fence repaired.
It's just a big old fire.
But that got pushed back, and now I have these plants and it's December. So what am I gonna do to save these plants? I really don't want them to die over the winter. So if you truly don't know where you're gonna put your perennials and it's the end of the season, do what I do and plant them in your vegetable bed. Look, the veggie bed is done for the season, okay? I only have a few perennial plants in there. Most of them are annual veggies. It's done for the season. I can just put my perennials in the veggie bed and then pull them out in the spring when I'm ready to plant and when I'm ready to plant my veggies. If you leave these plants in their plug containers over the winter, they could be fine, or they might die. It really depends on your local weather and if you have good snowpack. I've placed perennials in a flat like right next to the fence. I covered them with leaves, let them get covered with snow, and they were mostly insulated, so they did okay over the winter. I've also had some flats where they basically all died over the winter, and it was a huge bummer. So it's just a risk. To try this method, I would place the flats in an area that doesn't flood, up against a fence or some other kind of windbreak, where it also has access to the sky so that it can get covered with snow. You don't want to put this under the eaves of the house where it's going to be super dry. There's not going to be any snow on it to insulate it. You want to put it somewhere where it has access to snow and sunlight and where it's going to have a little bit of a break from the wind. You can also throw a pile of leaves or some mulch over it to insulate it over the winter. Remember, we need to insulate it from the cold, but also from drying out. So you don't want to put a huge pile of wood chips over it so it's buried and it doesn't really have access to water and oxygen. Gently covering it with 3 inches or so of wood chips, maybe 6 inches of leaves will go really far. For non-native plants like hydrangea or roses or something, I would strongly suggest putting them in the ground and mulching with leaves or wood chips because I can't really be sure that they can tolerate the harsh conditions that our native plants can. Once you're done doing this, you can keep the containers, reuse them if you want. If you want to grow some seedlings in the spring, you can wash them out really good with soap and water to kill any pests to protect your seedlings from disease. Now all my plants are protected for the winter. Now I can say goodnight to the outdoor garden and get back to my full-time job of waiting on hold with my insurance company. This winter, I'm looking forward to growing seeds indoors and showing you all how to do that.
That's suspicious. That's weird.